Hey, it's Jahara. Welcome back to my channel too, TV Fanatic. So I am going to be talking about Charmed. Yay! I do love Charmed. It's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. I have several that I consider my favorite. There's several that I like, several that I love, but I guess I do have a certain amount that I consider my all-time favorites, and Charmed is definitely one of them. And my favorite character is Piper. Should be no surprise there. I mean, a few months ago, I think, or maybe sometime last year, I did a video. It was like top 10 epic Piper moments, and I do want to do a video like that for Phoebe because she's my second favorite character. But this video is again about Piper just because I love Piper and I want to do another video about her. And it's another top 10. It is top 10 heartbreaking Piper moments. And no, this is not my last countdown of Piper that I plan to do. I also have one I'm planning called top 10 heartwarming Piper moments, but that I have no idea when I'll do that. Could be years away. We'll see. But I'm excited for this one. And let's hope I don't cry because some of these moments can be really sad. So let's jump in, shall we? So number 10, I have Death. She died a few times. I'm not talking about death like her death. Because she's died a few times. She died several times, I think. Let me see if I can remember off the top of my head all the times she died. I mean, she died on the episode that Andy died, but she came back. She died once in that episode because Phoebe died twice in that episode. Piper died once in that episode. I'm not gonna remember all the times she died. There was the time with that one demon. I can't remember his name, but it's like he had that thing where it shot out of his hand, and he like ended up killing both Phoebe and Piper. It's when Leo ended up becoming an elder, and he was able to heal them both. Not elder, Avatar. Those are the only two times I can think of that Piper died off the top of my head. I know there's more, I know it, but those are the only two times I can think of it. I mean, I'm sure she died more times than that. But yeah, it's always sad to watch her die, even though it usually doesn't last long, thankfully. Both those times that I did mention, she wasn't dead very long, because like the first time they end up switching time right afterwards, and then the other time Leo ended up coming and with his new avatar abilities was able to heal them both immediately. Where's my phone? I was gonna look up when else she died. This is not my current phone. I just have a lot of notes and stuff for future videos on phone. That's why I still keep it. Same with my other phone because I have like 3 phones now. But I can't find my current phone. Hold on. I have no idea where it went. I'm back. I found it. I forgot that I left it in my purse because I left the house this morning, and I put it in my purse, and I totally forgot that I left it in my purse. So let's see. I'm gonna look up when Piper died, because Piper deaths, because I'm like seriously curious now. Okay, how could I forget that? That's one of my favorite episodes of that season. Okay, there's a time she died and awakened. Maybe I forgot about it because it was the only time she didn't die of a magical cause. It was just a normal disease. There was the time she died in Coyote Piper, but I don't like that episode. But I vaguely remember her, dying because she got possessed and all that. All hell breaks loose, right? How could I forget that she was actually the one that died before Prue? Piper is tied with Paige in the death toll. Piper's the only sister to die of non-magical reasons. She nearly died due to Oriya fever and was shot by Alice Hicks. Oh yeah, that wasn't the only time she died by non-magical causes. It was the only time she died from not being murdered. But, cause in All Hell Breaks Loose, she was shot by a human. So even though she was still technically murdered, it was still by non-magical reasons. Right, okay. Hmm. This whole video just of Piper's deaths. I think there's a video for all of them, because like all these sisters died multiple times, except for Prue. I feel like the only time she actually died was when she actually died. Okay, but yeah, so I definitely okay. So what was her saddest death for me? I'm trying to think. Oh, this is a hard one. I mean the I feel like the two big ones would be in All Hell Breaks Loose and Awakened. Those were the two big ones, because the one I mentioned when Leo became an avatar, and then the one when Andy dies, are both very short lived. Like there's barely any time to even register that she died before it's fixed. Um, and then with Coyote Piper, I just don't like that episode, and I don't, if I remember correctly, I don't think she was dead that long either. I don't think it was as quick as the other two, but I don't think she was dead that long. With Awaken and All Hell Breaks Loose, that was a big point of the episode. You know, like the other two episodes, it wasn't even the point of the episode. But with this, these two episodes, her death was actually the point of the episode. I should do an entire video where I just talk about all their deaths, like all the sisters' deaths. I might actually do that. Nice video idea. But uh I think the only time her death actually makes me cry would be Awaken and All Hell Breaks Loose, because those were actually tear jerking, you know? I mean, the others were just so quick and then it was over, and you didn't even have enough time to register that it happened, or for you to mourn for the best sister. Um, yeah, you know, and I feel like Awaken was the scariest, because in All Hell Breaks Loose, and Awaken, you get to see both the sisters' reactions. Um, and, but with, All Hell Breaks Loose, you only get to see like Prue's. Phoebe does hear about it, but she doesn't even really shed a tear, because right away she knows she could fix it just by agreeing to the source's terms. You do get to see Leo's reaction more in All Hell Breaks Loose than in Awaken, because he ends up being the one to save her in the end. And he wasn't really in the episode until the end, so you don't really get to see his reaction at all. So it was nice to see his reaction to the love of his life getting um and at that point they're married, you know, they're broken up and awakened, so that was nice to see Leo's reaction to the love of his life being, you know, dead. And Piper Prue's raw emotion. I might not be the biggest Prue fan, I mean, I don't not like her, but her raw emotion was probably one of her best acting throughout the series. But then I'm gonna have to say Awakened was more sad for me, just because even in All Hell Breaks Loose and her death was a big part of the episode, it still wasn't the only thing. Like Awakened, the entire thing was about Piper and getting this disease and dying and then coming back only to die again. And it was just this big thing, and it's one of my favorite one of my favorite episodes from season 2, and I absolutely love it. It's also when you get introduced to that doctor that tried to save her life, which I'll be talking about him again later in this list. I got a little sidetracked with the fact that with Piper's deaths, and I went this whole debate. So we need to move on here in a minute. But like I was saying, Awaken would have to be the saddest for me, just because her death was the main point of this episode, her disease, and it was also the scariest death of any of the sisters, because even though she did die twice from non-magical means, this was the only time that it was something that they couldn't do anything about. The first time it was something that didn't have to do with murder, whether it was demon murder or magical murder or just a random girl shooting you because she thinks you're evil. Like Piper's um death in Awaken was just so much more sad because you get to see both Prue and Phoebe's reactions because they're both with her the entire time, terrified that she might die, and then devastated when she does die, and it's just so sad, and the acting was phenomenal, and it was just so heartbreaking, and so it's an eye opener because at this point they've only been witches for a little over a year, but they got so used to all these witchy things happening that they forgot that they are still human. They could still die from non-magical means. And I feel like it was such an eye opener and it was just so extravagant how they played that out because it's true that they they got so used to the fact that they're witches, and they got so used to the fact that if they do die young, it will probably be from a demon or something magical. But to watch their sister die from something so human made them realize, hey, guess what? We're still human. And it was beautiful and sad and heartbreaking. And yeah, so I'm gonna move on before I continue this debate. But Awaken would definitely be the saddest Piper death for me personally. But I would love to know your opinions in the comments about what Piper's saddest death for you was. Number 9 is Dead Man Dating. That was sad. I mean, Piper and Leo are obviously like the best couple. Like, no doubt they beat every other couple by like 100 miles. Like no, you cannot be Piper and Leo. I mean, they're really the only couple you see from beginning to end, anyways. But even though you do meet Leo in season 1, it wasn't until middle-ish of season 1 when you meet him, maybe a little bit before the middle mark. But anyways, Piper does meet a ghost, and he comes to her, and because he meets her first, and she doesn't realize he's a ghost first until because she can see him, and they're still this is only the 4th episode in the series, so it's like they're still so new to this magic that she hasn't even really thought about ghosts yet, or if she would be able to see them. And this is the episode where you find out that they can see ghosts when no one else can, and then they bond over cooking because Piper's love has always had this love for cooking, and um then you get to see her try to tell his family that he's dead because they do not know yet because his body was burned to be unrecognizable, and then the villains had made it arranged to make people think that it was the head bad guy so that he can fake his death. um they do eventually obviously make everyone realize that it was him that died, and the villain, you know, um I feel like that was a eye opener too. I mean, considering their main bad guy was human, I feel like those episodes in this kind of a series are always so interesting because like you get so used to your heroes fighting demons or magical things that all of a sudden when they have to fight a human, it becomes so much more real, so much more and it's just I love it. Uh it really makes you think, and this show does that beautifully several times. Like there's a few times where they are up against a human, which is scary because they're used to fighting demons, but with a human it's different. And same thing for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, another one of my all-time favorite shows. Um the reason why the season 6, because each season has a big bad, unlike Charmed. Um each season has a big bad, and there's this huge climatic thing at the end of each season with the big bad. And technically, the big bad of season 6 was Dark Willow, but she doesn't become dark until the last few episodes. So throughout the season, you think the big bad, and it kind of was the big bad until Willow turned dark, was Jonathan, Andrew, and Warren. I almost forgot his name. I was like, how can I forget his name? Mostly Warren. Andrew was with Warren because he was like obsessed with him, I think. And then Jonathan just found the wrong crowd because he just wanted a feeling of belonging. But the reason why it was so scary, that's the reason why a lot of people don't like season 6, but that's one of the reasons why I love season 6 and why it's one of my favorites, because it's just so much, it's so real, and it's so, to see that stuff in this magical world, and your heroes have to remember that there are still human threats, that, and because they, after so many years, you get so used to all these magical threats and magical dangers and magical bad guys and magical deaths, that when something so human happens, everything changes, and you don't know what to do with it, because I mean, you're a good guy and you can't just kill a human. That was Buffy's turmoil through a lot of that season. She can't kill Warren like she could with all of her other bad guys. Um, and the fact that he was human just made the whole season so much more real and so much more heartbreaking. And seeing the human in it all. And same with Willow's addiction to magic. Yeah, it was still a magical thing, but the addiction part was human. And it's just so. And then the fact that Tara died from a magical death, Joyce had died from Tara had died from a non-magical death, and then, I mean, Joyce the season before died from a non-magical thing or murder or anything. So it's just a lot more scary, especially when you get so used to it being something magical, something you can fight, something you can do something about. But when it's just dying from a disease that no one can control, or being shot, which is also something you can't really control, it becomes so much more scary. And that's why Piper's those two of Piper's deaths are the scariest, especially the disease, because it's something you couldn't control, couldn't foresee, couldn't stop. There is just nothing that you could do about it except watch this person you love die. And it's very human and very scary, and I got off track again. This is gonna be a very long video. But yeah, like I was saying, the point of this was Dead Man Dating. I can't remember his name, but at the end, after they were able to stop the bad guys, after they made it so that he was fine and he wasn't attacked by that one guy that wanted to bring him to hell, he was able to go off with his dad, who had died years before, and which was sweet. I always thought they should do that with Prue and bring back Andy, but at the same time, Prue didn't want to come back for the rest of the series, and at the end of season 3, you're not supposed to know that Prue's dead. You're just supposed to know that Prue, Piper, and that one doctor are all injured. That's all you're supposed to know. You're not supposed to know Prue's dead yet. But yeah, so they couldn't really do that. But I still think it would have been nice to see her walk off with Andy. But anyways, but he says goodbye to Piper, and it's really sad. And yeah, she fell for a ghost. I'm already 18 minutes in this, and I've already only done 2 of these. Okay, let's move this along, shall we? Number 8 is the Thorn. That's another time she died, right? But in season 7, right before Leo becomes mortal again, he has Piper gets shot by a thorn, and so much is going on, because before she can have Leo heal it, he has to go to the elders, and then she drops, and I just love that scene because of what Piper says, and this is just one of the many reasons why she's my favorite character. But she's walking up the stairs, and then she falls, and you can tell something's going on because she's all dizzy, she's not feeling well, and she can barely walk, and so she gets back up and starts walking again, and then she stops, turns around, and sees her body because she was now a ghost. She wasn't dead, but she was dying. And that's why her soul can't leave too far from her body, because she's technically not dead. And so actually with this one, I don't think she actually technically died. She just almost died. So I don't think this counts as one of her deaths. But and then they can't get a hold of Leo, and then by the time Leo does come, he fell from grace and all, which was, so romantic. But Wyatt was able to heal him, which is nice. Which is nice. But this entire episode, I just felt so bad for Piper, because she was so. I love the scene where she yells at the 2 elders. I hate that one male elder who kept wanting Leo to choose the elders. But the female elder is probably the only elder I kind of like, because she kept saying it's like she knew that Leo's love for Piper would win in the end. No matter how many times the other elder interfered, she knew that that Leo would end up choosing Piper, and she kept saying, "Don't give up hope." But I do love when Piper goes off on her. I love when Piper goes off on anybody. Let's be real. I love it when she goes off the elders in this episode. I love when Piper goes off on the elder and the Avatar when Leo was destined to die in the last season. But yeah, so but it was just an emotional episode for Piper. Like, she might lose Leo again. Like, she's lost him so many times before, and she's terrified of losing him again, to be a single mother again. And not to mention the fact that she's dying, and then she has to, and then in her purgatory, she sees Cole, who she hates after everything he's done to her family. Um, so it's all just a mess, and it's such a sad Piper episode. Um, Number 7 is Leo leaving to become an elder. This was so sad. The saddest part was when Piper goes to heaven or wherever the elders are stationed. They go there. She goes there, soaking wet from you know being in the pouring rain. I love the scene where she takes out the Titans by herself, but let's not get too much into that because this video is already going to be long because I keep getting sidetracked and getting into long debates. Um, and then she ends up saying Leo didn't think he had a choice because the elders, so many had died after the Titans, and they needed someone like Leo who believed, who wanted to help, who wanted the good, and so they needed Leo to, because he had helped them so much, and he ended up becoming an elder for helping them, which he didn't mean to. Um, so he ended up becoming an elder, and there's no going back. And Piper was really upset because she's like, I you asked me to marry you and I said yes. You asked me for a son and I gave you you asked me for a child and I gave you a son, and it was so heartbreaking. And then Leo ended up taking the goddess out of her, and then Piper left, and it was just so heartbreaking because Piper loved Leo more than anything. And Leo loved Piper more than anything too, and he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave Piper. He didn't want to leave Phoebe and Paige because they were like his family too, and they didn't want to. And he didn't want to leave his son Wyatt because at this point Chris wasn't born. But it was just so heartbreaking to watch for both of them. Number 6, Wyatt being evil / Chris dying. These kind of, I put them together because they're kind of intertwined for the storylines, because the whole Chris coming from the future and they didn't know why until he revealed that Wyatt ends up becoming evil, and he came to save Wyatt and to stop, this evil overlord that he was in the future. And then they were able to save Wyatt from being evil by the end, but it did end up costing Chris his life, older Chris, because like Piper's just about to give birth to baby Chris. But and then the scene when Chris dies is just so sad. Must be one of the saddest deaths for me. Out of the deaths that actually stayed dead. Um, it was just so sad because he had done everything to save Wyatt, and he even died to save Wyatt, because it shows that in the end, despite the fact that he had issues with his brother, he did love his brother. He came back to save him, but that wasn't just for Wyatt either. It was also to save the world from him. But in this moment, he jumped in front of baby Wyatt and saved him, um, dying in the process. And then the scene, oh my gosh, I knew I wasn't gonna get through this video without crying. The scene where everyone finds out is so heartbreaking. I don't think there was a scene where Piper finds out 'cause she was, in labor, and there was a spell on her and everything, making her uncharacteristically happy. But it was just so sad because, like, Leo was there and was trying to heal him. And Leo and Paige were there. Leo was trying to heal him when he couldn't, and then Daryl came and all that, and then both Leo and Paige had to watch him fade out. Oh my gosh. Ugh. It's just such a sad scene, but they both watch him fade out, and then you see Leo like all broken about it, and then you can see, and then it pans to Paige, who is off to the side and is crying out too because Chris meant something to all of them. You know, he's all of their family, and then it shows Paige go back to the hospital, and there was no words needed said between Paige and Phoebe. Paige just slightly shook her head, and then Phoebe knew what that meant. I'm back. Sorry, I had to. That scene. I'm not even watching that scene, and it's making me cry just thinking about it. Like I can see it happen so clear in my mind. Like I love that finale. It's probably one of my favorite finales, other than the obviously the eighth one. Like the last finale is obviously the best. I do love the seventh finale for the most part. But it's just such a good finale, and it's just so heartbreaking. Um. But yeah, let's move on before I shed some more tears because I really don't want to. Number 5 is losing the doctor who tried to save her. Dr. Williams, right? Dr. Williams, I think it's Curtis Williams, I think is his name, if I remember correctly. He was introduced in Awaken, which I talked about earlier, and I said we would be talking about him again. He did come back once later on in the season with the Astral Protection monkeys, and they he was trying to figure out how Piper had survived when there was like no logical explanation for her to survive. Of course there wasn't. And he became obsessed about it. He even ended up accidentally injecting himself. Well, that was more the monkeys doing because he injected the monkeys with their blood, giving them their powers. And then one of the monkeys, I think Prue's monkey, because she used her telekinesis, like made the syringe go into him, and then he ended up with their powers too. Um, and then he ended up murdering people because he wanted to help. He ended up murdering killers to take out their organs to help people, good people who deserve them and need them, and because he kind of lost it. And then Leo, Prue, and Phoebe kept saying he is a how he is now a monster. He is killing people, and they need to put him down. And the Piper's like, no, he's sick. He needs help. And because she wanted to help him so much, because even though it wasn't him that saved her, he tried so hard to save her when she was dying, and all she wanted to do was to save him. And it's such a good episode. Not as good as Awakened, but I really enjoyed this episode. And um the saddest part was at the end when they couldn't when they were fighting him, and then he ended up dying. And Piper, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry again. Like, why am I so emotional talking about some of these scenes? I mean, I'm in the top 5 now, so these scenes are just like the real sad scenes for me. Okay. Uh-huh. She like ran over to him, and Prue and Phoebe were just standing there like there was nothing they could do. It was too late. He was dead. And then Piper just leaned over him and cried. And then later on, Piper was like reading some of his files or whatever and learned more about him. Learned his first name was Curtis. Learned that he never married because saving lives was more important to him. And she felt so responsible that she couldn't save his life. And then she ended up leaving and going to her room and crying. And then Leo came and hugged her as she cried, and that's one of the most emotional scenes in the earlier seasons for me. It was just so sad because it's like I feel like that was one of the first people. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure there were other people before him that they couldn't save, but I feel like this was the first one that was truly emotional, that truly got to these sisters, that got to Piper. And it makes it so much worse when you think about the fact that he is a doctor and all he ever wanted was to save lives, and then he gets corrupted, and then he dies, and all Piper wanted to do was save him, and she couldn't. And I feel like it's also more emotional because he was on more than one episode. Yeah, it's just 2, but still, I feel like most of the people they can't save, besides the major deaths like Andy or Chris, um we're only in one episode, so it's also not as emotional because you don't get to see them as much. But with him, he was on 2 episodes, and you get to see him be this doctor that cares so much about saving, only to get corrupted and obsessed, and ends up not being able to be saved, even though that's all Piper wanted. And it's just such a heartbreaking scene. Like this scene where she's crying right after he dies is sad, but the scene when she goes to her room and then starts crying and Leo orbs in, that scene is what always gets me. Uh, sorry, I'm back again. I didn't. Um, these last scenes are just gonna get to me. So let's move on. Because I'm already in like over 30 minutes. So number 4. Okay, I just did. No, I did number 5. So number 4 is being stuck in a mental hospital in her own mind. That was sad. That's season 4 is definitely not one of my favorite seasons. It's probably my least favorite season, to be honest. Because when Paige was first introduced, I didn't like her. She did grow on me even more so than Prue. So by the end, I liked her more than Prue. But at the beginning, I did not like her, and I feel like season 4 paralleled with season 1 because season 1 was so much about the three sisters being new to witchcraft and learning the rules and figuring everything out, and we got to figure out everything and learn the rules with them. But by season 4, we honestly know most of it. There's still a few things that the girls will have to learn that we don't know, but for the most part they know everything. But then Paige comes and she doesn't know anything. She just became a witch, found out she has sisters, so they're learning to deal with each other, learning to become close, and because they did just meet, they didn't know that the others existed. Um, and uh, and then Paige has to learn all the rules and the lessons that Piper and Phoebe had to learn in season 1. But so I mean, this time Paige doesn't have to learn it alone because she does have Piper and Phoebe to tell her because they didn't have anyone to tell them. But at the same time, Paige didn't really listen. At least not at the beginning. Later on in the season, I feel like she did start listening because she realized that they did know a lot more than her, and finally, listened to the rules and the lessons and whatever they had to teach her. But so I feel like that slowed the season so much because of the fact that we had to go back and revisit all these lessons that Piper and Phoebe and Prue learned in season 1 so that Paige can learn them too. Which is understandable because Paige is new to witchcraft, and if you are going to enter it at a new edition that isn't so new like they were, then we can't just skip over the learning because um we have to see her learn, because if we just skip over, it's like, how does she figure this out if we didn't get to see it? So I understand it, but it just slowed the season a lot to make it my least favorite. I mean, I don't dislike the season, I don't dislike any of the seasons, and there are key episodes that I love. One of them, one of my favorite episodes from that season will have to be the one where um a brain drain. That's the episode name. It's one of the early episodes of that season too. Paige had just moved in with them. She's now a witch. She is becoming their sister, and Piper has a lot of issues with her. It's actually this episode where no, it's the Fury episode where she decides to try with her, but she's still having issues because she's the oldest now, and she has to be in charge of teaching Paige, and she is still reeling after Prue's death and all the pain that being a witch has caused her, and it affects her more than anything. She's the one that always wanted to be normal, more so than Prue, more so than Phoebe, more so than Paige, and at this point, she wants to be normal so much more than she ever did before because she lost Prue because of magic, and she's just going through a lot. And the source takes that, like, control over that, and he ends up kidnapping her and going in her head, and to make her think she's in this mental institution and make her think she's crazy, like all these things that happened the past several years. It's not true that Prue never died, but she got better and left the institute, and that Phoebe and Paige and Prue, they were never her sisters. They're all just patients, her roommates, that are also unwell, and that's why they're there. And that every demon they've ever vanquished were doctors that were trying to help her. And um so they don't have any magic here or anything because the demon's controlling her mind. And uh so she's in this mental institution in her own mind, not knowing what's real and what's not. She's like, no, everything's because and later on you actually see her start to be defeated. She actually starts to believe that this entire mental institution is real, that she's not a witch, that all of this was just in her mind, and she needs help. And Leo, Phoebe, and Paige were all able to project inside her mind later on to help her and make her realize that this is real, that it's all been real, that's not in her head. And they were able to save her, but you can understand why she just wants to be normal. I mean, she goes through she went through more heartbreak than anyone else, more pain, more, and it's just this is just and at this point she had already been through a breaking point. That's why she wants to be normal, but then this happens and it's like she's just over the edge and she just can't deal with it anymore. No, I mean, I understand why by the end of the season she was willing to get rid of her powers. I mean, at that point even Phoebe was, because of all the stuff that happened with Cole in that season. And if it wasn't for everything that happened with Cole, I don't think Phoebe would have ended up wanting to, even with everything else that happened. I feel like Cole was her breaking point. For uh, Piper, losing Prue was her breaking point. But at that point, I feel like Piper had been through so much more than Phoebe. So Phoebe wasn't at her breaking point yet, not until everything that happened with Cole. But yeah, moving on. Number 3, Prue's death. Obviously, this is probably the saddest thing for Piper and Phoebe. One of the saddest. I mean, it's in the top 3, but there were a couple things that I thought were just a lot worse for them. Uh, but Piper and Prue were always really close, and they loved each other dearly, and they would do anything for one another. And sure, they fought. All sisters fight, but in the end, they would die for one another. Um, and it's really sad. And then Piper ended up losing her big sister. Like she was saying at one point right before one point after Prue had died, she was like that she was like there was never a time she didn't know her sister. I mean, Prue was the oldest. There was never a time in her life that Prue wasn't there. And it's not like with Phoebe and Prue, who did end up at the beginning of the show, they did not get along. They had issues, and they hadn't even talked in probably a couple of years. But it wasn't like that for Piper and Prue. They never lost touch. They never stopped talking. Um, and they never lost that closeness. So it was just so devastating for Piper to lose her big sister, because her big sister meant everything to her, and it was so heartbreaking to see her go through that because she's already been through so much. Like I said, by even at this point, she's the one that went through the most, in my opinion. I might do a whole video on that too, like explaining why I feel like Piper went through the most. That's a good video idea as well. But it's just and so losing Prue was her breaking point. This is when she's like, I'm done. I don't want to be witch anymore. It only gets us all killed. Patty, Penny, Prue, they all died because they were witches. That's all she could see. And honestly, it's not completely untrue. I mean, well, Penny, it was because she died of old age or heart conditions or something. It wasn't because she was a witch. Um, Patty died by a demon. Prue died by a demon. And then Phoebe, Paige both died several times by demons, and then Piper died a few times by a demon. But like I said, she also had non-magical or non-demon related deaths. Um, so yeah, uh, so I can see where she's coming from, and and she was just at the funeral. She was wrecked right before it's where she's snapping at Leo, and then the Fury episode where where all she wants to do is do something. She wants to kill all these demons because it's all she can do, because like she was saying, she was like uh it hurts to talk, it hurts to breathe, and it's just she was really not handling Prue's death, and it was just so heartbreaking. Number 2 is losing Leo. Now she's lost Leo a few times, but the saddest time, um, the second saddest time was I already mentioned when Leo became an elder. That was heartbreaking. But even sadder than that was when in the last season when Death was after him and the Angel of Destiny said the only way to save him was to basically freeze him and then let him and then defeat this evil, and then he would be returned to her. I mean, it was their way of writing Leo out because they had budget issues and stuff, and um they even said that the worst part of the people who made Charm even said the worst part of season 8 was uh Leo only being a part of the season and Daryl not being in it at all, which I agree because I love Daryl and I love Leo and I love Piper and Leo's relationship. But it was just so sad. Like you see Piper the entire episode doing everything in her power to save Leo because he's mortal now, and she's lost him so many times. And him being mortal was supposed to be their way of being together finally, without any more magical interferences. But then she is still a witch, so there is still going to be magical interferences, even if he's no longer a Twilight or an Elder or an Avatar. There's still those magical interferences they're going to have to deal with. So and it's just so heartbreaking. The saddest scene was when where they made Leo go there, and Piper explained it to him, and she's like, I have to lose you to save you. And it's just so heartbreaking because they have been through so much already. They're supposed to have their time together now, their time as a married couple, as parents to two little boys who need both of their parents, and it's so heartbreaking. And I'm gonna cry again. Um, and then they like are just staring at each other as they slowly freeze him to save him, and it's just so heartbreaking. And Piper's crying, and then they crowd around her to support her, and then oh my god, I cannot. Oh my gosh, this video is gonna be the death of me. Okay, but then they go and you see what they're doing at their house after the effects of Leo being gone, and you see Phoebe playing with. I can't get through this. You see Phoebe playing with Wyatt and Chris, and um, so that they can not be alone right now. And then you see Paige go to Henry, all crying. um, you see Piper by herself looking out at the balcony and just looking and crying all by herself because she feels so alone now that Leo's gone. And even though she's not alone, she has her sisters and sons. It's just different, and it's just so sad. Like they all miss Leo because he's like, okay, just give me a minute. Okay, he's their family and everything. Um, but Piper's obviously the one that misses him and needs him the most, and it's just heartbreaking. Wow. Okay, this episode's going to be the death of me. Like, man, these scenes are so emotional. I just have to talk about them to get all emotional. Okay, now honorable mentions. I only have one, which is remembering. This is when they were trying to make Utopia, and with the Avatars were trying to make Utopia, but then they kind of made it so like anyone who had any negative effects would be gone, and then you're just gonna be okay with it. Like you're not even gonna be sad over death. They're like, oh, they're in a better place. But even if they are in a better place, you're still sad that you lost this person because you love this person, you know. And um, this episode was emotional 3 times. I'm mostly gonna talk about the Piper one, but I will briefly mention the Phoebe and Paige one. I feel like Phoebe's was less emotional though than the others, but it's a scene I love nonetheless. When she touched the book and then I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry. You see all the deaths that they have experienced and lost. I mean, you see Andy, because even though it's been many years and Prue's no longer with them, they all did care about Andy, just like they all care about Leo, even if only one of them is in love with him. They all care about them. And then you see Patty's death, Prue's death, Penny's death, Chris's death. think that's all. I think that's all of them that you saw. No, Cole's death. Because even though everything Cole did, Phoebe still loved him, and it still hurt her a lot when he died. But yeah, so it's just heartbreaking. And Paige's scene when they made her realize that Brody's dead and that it's okay to be sad about it is heartbreaking too. But the most heartbreaking one for me is Piper's. You know, Phoebe's trying to get through to Piper because Leo, because as she was explaining, the reason why Chris and Wyatt were so upset wasn't because demons were around, because they're used to it, but because they they can't be programmed because they are just kids, and they saw their dad disappeared, like dead, and they don't know, and so they're obviously upset about it. And then so she has to break through to Piper and be like, they promised you this life where you can be happy with Leo and be um and finally have this life where you're happy and free to be with him without turmoil, and then they just take him away from you like that. And then she wakes up and starts to remember and gets really upset and cries and is sad. And I'm gonna move on now to number one. Number one is finale. So finale was very upsetting for Piper again. Oh my gosh, they just like to put Piper through hell. Jeez, people. Piper's the best character. Why is she the one going through hell? I guess it's always the best character that goes through the most. But but Piper, uh at the beginning of the episode, it was the end of the last episode was with the house explosion. I mean, you know, you have no idea what happened. You have no idea if everyone's okay, the good or the bad guys. You don't know if they're okay. All you know is that the house exploded when they were all in there. And then the beginning of the next episode, the last episode of the series, Piper is revealed to be okay. And then she's looking everywhere for Phoebe and Paige. And then she does find Phoebe, but she's dead. And she holds her and cries. And then the Angel of Destiny brings Leo back, and she's like, I'm sorry, this isn't how it was supposed to go. But um they defeated the big evil, which was Christy. At first you think it's Billy and Christy, but then when Billy reveals to be alive and Leo's there, it means that it's just Christy that has to die for Leo to come back. But like I said, Billy's revealed to be alive because they heard something. She thought it might be Paige, that Paige might be okay, so she ran over only to find Billy. So Phoebe, Paige, and Christy all died. And now Piper just has Leo, and Billy is off, you know, trying to bring Christy back. So Piper spends a good portion of this episode going through time, whether it was to the future once or to the past a couple different times, to find her mom and her grandma so they can recreate the Power 3 and be able to go back in time, or go back to the future, but back. Okay, time travel confuses. They go to the future because she had went back in time, but it was after. I can't explain this. Okay, they go back through time again to right before the house the house was exploded. And they were able to stop the explosion and save everyone. But of course, that meant Leo had to go away again because now Christy was no longer dead, no longer defeated, and the big evil was still alive and everything. So, but then they were able to work together to stop Christy with Billy's help, and so yeah. But it was very emotional because she was the last witch standing. Again, this wasn't the first time that she was like the only one alive. Like there was that time where the demon came from the future and teamed up with his past self and they killed Phoebe and Paige. And then right before he was able to kill Piper, Leo came in and got her away, warped her out. So there's all that. So it wasn't the first time that Piper was the last witch standing, but it's always sad for Piper because it's like she already lost Prue, and then there's these two times where she watched her sisters die again, which means she's lost three sisters, and it makes her feel so sad and so alone, and it's just, it breaks my heart every time. But yeah, that's all for this video. Please like and subscribe and comment your favorite um heartbreaking Piper moments, and I will talk to you guys in the comments. Until next time.